Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, let me get my phone number up here so you guys can call or attempt to, whatever the case may be. Good morning. It's Tuesday, November something or other, and it's, it's the 28th. It's almost just, no wonder I've started hearing Christmas carols. God dang it. Okay, so anyway, it's Tuesday. That means my sister Susan is joining us. Susan, hello.
Hello, I'm a little worried.
Oh.
You're cutting in and out.
Oh, shoot. Well, you just let us know if and when it becomes unbearable.
An issue, I will.
Okay. I have to do some backtracking, Susan, about yesterday's show.
Uh-oh, what did you do?
Well, I did a rant. I did a thing about how nothing's going to change about women and men, and because it's biological mostly and then cultural, and it's so infused in the everything, our entertainment, our politics. There's just no change in this. It goes back millennia and, lots of luck. So all of a sudden, for a brief shining moment, people are listening to women, and actually some people are believing them. And and then I guess I went off on another rant saying something about how, I don't even remember what I said, but something about the sexualized culture is such that I wasn't saying women have, well, I was. I said in some cases women, through their actions, almost, I don't know what I said, if you want to know the truth. Well, they are looking for attention. They dress in a certain...
You were saying that women use their sexuality to garner power and or attention or whatever.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, well, that's true.
I agree. And then I got into how in the law, when there's a car accident, that it can be found that one party was, 90% culpable and the other was 10% culpable. And
right. That is called contributory negligence.
Okay. So I was saying that given what we know about male biology, and also let's throw in a lot of alcohol and young men. Let's do a college campus kind of a scene. That young women have to be aware that they are potentially putting themselves in a very potentially dangerous position. And I was thinking if you were just taking all the politics out and all the political correctness out, that would not be an outrageous statement to make.
No, but you're immediately going to get people screaming at you for blaming the victim, and women have a right to do whatever they want and doesn't give any man any right. And all of that is true, but what you are saying is true as well.
Well, I have to tell you, I got two things. I got the first thing when I woke up this morning, still totally groggy, reaching groggily for my cell phone and checking my emails. The first email in there, which was sent at 7:15 or something this morning, was from a dear friend of mine of long standing. And can I read this to you?
Yeah, it's your show.
You're hearing me, though, okay, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think she will mind, given the fact that I'm not identifying her. I listened to your recorded show on the way home from visiting my mother last night, and it was an exercise in patience and open-mindedness for me. It was jarring for me to hear some of the comments you were making about female culpability in the act of male sexual aggression. But if you've taught me anything over all the years I've listened to you, it's that hearing someone out is the cornerstone of communication. So I listened. And the more you talked and others called, the more I started to understand not only your perspective, but also my reaction to it. And it slowly occurred to me that it wasn't so much that I disagreed with much of what you were saying. It's more that it evoked the same response in me that the all lives matter folks do. Yes, you have a point, but it's not the point that deserves our attention right now. And it detracts from this bigger, deeper issue that has the national stage for a rare change. And moreover, it gives cover to those who have historically used the very arguments you're making as a defense and a further assault on many of the people who have been victimized. It's the same reaction I have when white people argue that so many of the black people shot by police would still be alive if they had just complied, if they wouldn't have been in the wrong place, if they hadn't dressed like thugs in hoodies that cover their faces. There is an uncomfortable truth in all of that, but it pales in comparison to the truth that racism is endemic in our culture and devastating to the lives and futures of so many. I guess that's the way I feel about focusing a spotlight on the women who make it hard for the rest of us to stop feeling like we have to apologize every time we ask for more space at the table, more volume for our voices, more attention paid to who we are versus how we look. Those women, and often they are so young as to barely be able barely be able to shoulder that description, are not the majority who withstand the consequences of men behaving badly. Those women are the excuse for men behaving badly, and this is not their time. All lives matter. Girls will be girls, but at this moment, can't we shift our gaze? As always, with love, respect, and blah, 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 blah. Is she not eloquent?
Beautifully written letter, and she's absolutely right.
Right.
And that's the problem. I mean, and it's clear when you say, let's say a person was walking down an alley to put their trash in the garbage at midnight and got mugged.
Right.
And murdered. The person is arrested. The murderer is arrested. At his trial, he can't argue she shouldn't have been there.
No.
Of course I'm going to do that.
Right. So
when you take it from an obvious down to and you get to the she was leading him on, asking for it, sort of a thing. Also not relevant.
It's not relevant.
Although it becomes relevant, and it is hard because I can see a defense being made that somebody was suggesting consent when it wasn't there.
Right.
So it's just this because of our biology, because of how babies are made. This is in its own way totally different from everything else. But it doesn't all these other crimes, but it doesn't lessen the crime. And I'm already watching and listening today. Reading the comment sections that I read, and men saying, "Well, I'm not going to because it's being politicized now. I'm not listening to any of this. It's just a big political gambit." Dismissed.
Well, but see, this is why I'm so pessimistic about any real change coming, because
it's already over.
Because in fact, the media take it and create the same. Everything has to fit into the same kind of template that they then create the narrative, and it just starts seeming like every other narrative, and then people just start taking their sides. But I thought, I want to go back to what you did not disagree with what I said, and I still will hold to that. But what this...
Either did she.
No.
Either
and
did
what
your
this
wonderful
woman, and she is, I'm so grateful to have her in my life, and I said that to her, how she so eloquently said, "I hear you, but just not the time. We've got this one little moment. Could we please not do the but this, but that, but, could we hear women speak?" Because, and as you said, you think it's already over.
It's already gone. But and let me tell you why. Proof of it. Now the Washington Post is a character in its own story, which was previously, very frowned upon in journalism. Everything's already changed. Media really has changed. Trump has changed it.
Susan, wait a minute.
In fighting for its relevancy and its truthdom, it has basically changed. So now Washington Post is doing a story about how the Washington Post outed this woman,
yes,
who was sent in by Veritas and to muddy the Roy Moore.
Well,
waters.
to trip up. Sent in to trick the Washington Post into publishing a totally erroneous story about Roy Moore,
which they could then point to as being a lie.
That's right. And I was so blown away by that piece today. I recommend to everybody to go to find that story and read the whole dang thing, and then watch the video.
Watch the video, both two videos. One that Veritas puts out, edited, and the whole video that Washington Post had.
Veritas, by the way, is again just like the right wing always does with their branding. Veritas means truth, right? And what Veritas traffics in are lies. So they name themselves...
They use lies to prove the truth.
No. They're the ones who went after Planned Parenthood. They go in under false presumption, false personae.
Auspices.
And in fact, lie constantly. Just lie. And they're recording. They're surreptitiously recording this and trying to get the person to say something that will then allow them to put out an edited piece. This is what they did to Planned Parenthood, and weave an entirely false story.
Well, and thank God this woman just wasn't very good at it, because she was only focusing, during the interview, she kept asking him whether they thought this would affect his chances for
election.
And no woman who was in this situation telling this story would have given two figs about that. That's not the story.
That's true. I thought that the exchange, and if you watch the entire video of the Post reporter talking to this woman, it's just so well done. This was an effort to, again, tar the mainstream media. The only thing that gets...
just in case you don't think that journalism is a real profession with real rules and real processes that they do to make sure that they are, at least attempting to tell
the truth. You're right. Exactly right. Exactly right.
So the thought that they wouldn't, for Veritas to believe its own, see, here's the thing. Veritas believes its own lies. So they really think that the Washington Post is totally biased and would be thrilled to report yet another thing without even bothering to check.
Well, they've been proven wrong, haven't they? They also have been proven to be unbelievably cynical, lying SOBs. And I got to tell you, turn everything up on its
middle name.
What this is, I have to tell you that, it's like everything that comes out of Trump's mouth. If you want to know the truth, just turn it 180 degrees. So he's always accusing other people of doing what he has done, not what they do. So fake news, something that now is part of our lexicon, is a real thing. And fake news is what Veritas, is what Breitbart, is what the Bannons of the world and the Trumps of the world
Fox News
are, and Fox News, they are the purveyors of fake news. They then create this whole idea of fake news and point their finger at the real journalists who are putting out real stories. And there are enough apparently clueless human beings out there now that literally I've been brainwashed where they cannot tell truth from fiction. They cannot tell an honest purveyor of journalism from a total quack, which is why I have reason to despair. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and it's all, when you begin to see, there are so many fronts to this war on America. The one on education is just astounding to me.
Right.
That we are witnessing state governments dismantle fine, prestigious institutions of learning, and they are called whiners, crybabies, and snowflakes or something. Elitist whiners and snowflakes,
right.
Crybabies.
Right.
And you're going, okay, so we disdain knowledge.
Yes, now we suppose there's a whole hunk of Americans.
It is now a state policy
that we disdain
and we put
knowledge.
Betsy DeVos in there as Secretary of Education, and I don't know if she's quitting. She's just disappeared.
Oh, no, I'm sure she's busy dismantling as much as she can in her tenure. I feel like I can't take much more. And you know who hung it up yesterday or today? A guy who I've never liked, but who is a hell of a good ranter and raver and a man of some eloquence. It's just his personality and manner that have always put me off. But I'm talking about Keith Olbermann. And Keith Olbermann, who's been marginalized because of his personality, can't keep a job. Everybody who's ever worked with him hates his guts. But he's a smart.
He's a real. Ugh.
Yeah, but he's a smart guy. He's smart. He sees this correctly. I can't stand to listen to him, as I said, but he has been putting out. I guess it's a podcast. With a hashtag, the resistance GQ. So I guess GQ magazine must be behind him. And I didn't listen to his whole thing, but here's the sentence that says it all. At the end, he said, "I am retiring from political commentary in all media venues." It's the end. He says not going to write, not going to do these podcasts. This is all he's done his entire working life.
Yeah,
and
I give him a month.
Well, maybe, but I don't know. And I did listen to much of what he had to say. I think he just can't do it anymore.
I know. Well,
and he did say,
as awful as he is, we need his voice.
No, and he did say, his whole thing was, he thinks Trump is done. Not immediately, but done. And he has 7 reasons why that is happening. But he said he was confident that Trump's presidency would end soon. Thereby, it was a correct moment to exit from further political commentary. Well, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't
Trump ain't
think
gone till he's gone.
He can't.
And the damage that he's done stays after.
He says that. He says that. Look, we ain't going to recover. He says something that I've always said. Trump is never gone. The only way you get rid of Trump is either if he dies or you die. That's true for all of us. He will be a part of our political conversation for the next 20, 30, 40 years. He will, because he's created this whole, or certainly helped.
Because he's destabilized the United States.
Totally. So Trump will, if forced from office, be Trump the martyr to a good 35% of the American population. And that 35% has behind it huge media outlets and billions upon billions of dollars, because they've got I didn't even mention yesterday how the Koch brothers have helped facilitate the purchase of Time Magazine, Sports Illustrated, People, Fortune, right. All of that.
They're buying media outlets.
Right,
They're also buying professorships in universities.
That's right. These guys, they are relentless, and they are beating us left, right, and center. They're destroying the United States. But our resistance seems puny to me. Seems truly puny.
Yeah, I mean, the Koch brothers really are the ones that are scary. I mean, when you go back a generation and you find Hitler in their, family a group of people they admire, it's a little scary that, excuse me, that these guys are remaking the country in their version of fascism, and they are.
Susan, let's try to take a call.
Okay.
Caller?
Hi, Lynn. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hey, I love you guys, first of all. But I have a couple things here. Trump, he equals the haters. All the haters that are sitting next to us, that are here, that this has been an opportunity for us to take a look and learn at what we have here, how prevalent the haters are. Trump has, he's just a small percent of what's out there. My theory, there's lovers and there's haters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's an opportunity for us to grow and learn. I refuse to partake in this downward spiral. This is not. I refuse. That, you know what?
Well, but
this
see,
is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, I agree. That is all true, but I don't think it's possible to refuse to be part of the downward spiral, since by living here now, we are all swept away by this tsunami of horror. And all I'm saying is I wish that our resistance was more, I don't know, apparent to me. I wish.
And Lynn, again, it's an opportunity, and this is what I'm saying. With Obama, and I keep trying to think of over and over, what the heck happened? I go back and forth, and what happened? And I know for myself, I was lulled into such a sense of, it was just wonderful. He was such a our first black president. We're so lucky that it happened in our lifetime. And the legalization of same-sex marriage, the beauty of his presidency. And I'm sorry, would we have recognized? It's like this beautiful sunny day. If we lived in an environment that it was always sunny, would we even notice it? The sunshine. Hey, this is an opportunity. What's happening that I'm seeing is that I'm an old white privileged liberal here, and I am reaching out, and this is causing me to reach out to people that I would never. I was always too polite or too politically correct. But we are engaging in conversations because of this. The only way I can even acknowledge this idiot is I call him our very own Kim Young Trump. That's my humor is the key to life. Thank you, Mom and Dad. That's what they taught me. Humor is the key to life, and I'm telling you, he's the Kim. I got it real quick on another thing is, I was thrown into compliments of affirmative action into an all-male workforce in the late 70s. A young, privileged, naive woman, and it was I had quite an education. But I come away from it saying that today's current discussion, the dialogue about the whole recognizing what has been and always gone on with women, I'm an expert. I can qualify as an expert on it, and
well, I think we all can. I think we, women's experience, we all can. And what you were saying is that now, at least, again, it's a teachable moment for men and seeing what
but it's also,
the reality is.
If I may bring into this dialogue with you and you two beautiful ladies. The part about there is something. Now this is evolution. This is women have a vulnerability built into our bodies that something can be taken away. We are not physically equal to a man. A man can overpower a woman. We do not have the majority.
Right. Most men can overpower most women.
Let's not split hairs here. A man can overpower and take something that is built into our bodies. And that is the nitty-gritty, babe. That's what it is.
And I think, man,
I think it's just about playing the game fair.
Okay. Hey, thanks for your call and your thoughts and your kind words.
I love you. Bye.
I love you too. Bye-bye. I
agree with her. It's never a bad idea to force yourself to look at what's living underneath your front porch every once in a while.
Yeah, indeed. Whole universes, are there.
Of things you don't want to admit are there.
Right.
And it's and I felt that way from the beginning, that it's, at least I don't have to say, nah, really, anti-Semitism is still amongst us. To people who think, oh, that was before.
No, it sure as hell ain't.
Or racism isn't here. Oh, we fixed that.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Nope.
It's all never ends. You know why? It's just like sexual assault will never end, because we seem to be made that way. Oh, God, Susan.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and listen, we're made that way. We have violent tendencies. We have, we are a species that likes to kill each other. I mean, and we are tribal by nature. But we also have a brain that can take in information and try and overcome basic
some of us
instinctual damaging behavior.
Yeah, but here's what we've learned.
All of that is true.
No, but here's what we've learned, Susan. Here's what we've learned. Some of us have a brain. There's a whole bunch of people who simply will not use their brains. They can't.
Or whose brains can be controlled.
Right. They can't do it. Or you wouldn't have people believing, absolute absurdities. No,
Well,
there
so
are.
sort of on topic. Did you see the big brouhaha in the New York Times about?
Yes, and I wanted to talk about it because I have to tell you, the New York Times, for those of you who didn't see it, it was Sunday, I guess, that it was in print. It was like, hey, you wonder who these Nazis are? Here's the Nazi next door. And they did a whole feature story introducing us to a guy.
What a nice guy.
A guy in Ohio who, lives with his wife and his cat and just seems like a regular guy. And in fact, they go out of their way to praise him for his Midwestern manners, the kind of manners that
and what could be wrong with a guy that likes Seinfeld?
That's right, and he, strangely, he likes Jerry Seinfeld.
He strangely likes this Jewish comic.
Right.
Probably doesn't know.
No, he knows he's Jewish. I mean, that just helps muddy the water. But all hell broke loose after this story because, first of all, what's the point of the story? It was a front-page story, Meet a Nazi. And this Nazi was said to be likable, he had a sense of humor, this, that, and the other thing. And the readers of the New York Times went berserk. And then the editor came out and wrote a, to me, gobbledygook piece defending the story, as did
and all of their angst,
as their reporter also did, and I have to tell you, and I think I know I said this to our brother at Thanksgiving. I don't know if you were in the room, but I said I have learned through the last year that the New York Times ain't the paper I thought it was. And I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of what the Times does. And the greatest paper is, without a doubt, the Washington Post. Without a doubt, the Post.
What's the one that I
hands down beats the Times. And I'm thinking of canceling my subscription so that all I get's the Sunday paper.
Well, that's what I do. I just get the Sunday.
Well, the Times, do you know that they have gone out of their way to normalize Trump's voters? They have done 500 million pieces on here are why people like Trump. And they give them all this stuff. There has never been similar stories or anywhere near the number of similar stories about most Americans. I think the Times is so traumatized that
they're trying so hard to prove that they're fair.
Right. And that's the brilliance of the right wing. Because they started
when they're made a character in their own story.
Right. I got to tell you though, for decades and decades, the right wing kept saying that liberal media, before they started mainstream media, it was the liberal media. It was not. It was simply journalists. But it started to take because that's what happens when through repetition. And so the liberal media, most especially the New York Times, began bending over backward to prove that they weren't. There was not a paper that was more anti-Clinton in their coverage than the Times. You might think that's not true. I assure you,
I think
it's
so. Well,
true.
Who was for Clinton? I mean, and I still feel sorry for her.
I'm not wasting my energy on her.
It's
I'm
shark
sorry.
feeding on misogynistic. It's just. Blah.
Let me read one letter to the Times today. This guy is a psychologist. He says, as a psychologist researching the spread of misinformation, I was particularly concerned in this piece about statements such as that he declared the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust overblown. And the Times just, writes this. Okay.
Let's it go.
Yes. Research in cognitive science has warned about the dangers of repeating sticky misinformation, serving mostly to reinforce the myth rather than the facts. The Times has given a platform to the extreme and fact-deprived opinions of a white nationalist, opinions that might inspire others to follow suit, attract more followers, get more coverage. They empower and embolden those who feel that their racist agendas are not being heard. Oh, the New York Times hears you. We hear you. We will do story after story on you. Don't worry. Anecdotal stories, says this guy, about Nazi sympathizers do not inform the educated reader about extremist trends in America. They do not inoculate against alternative facts. They do the opposite. They spread extremism. After all, if the New York Times writes about these extremists, they must have something interesting to say, right? They elevate them, the Times does, over and over again by constantly focusing on them. I really am. It's been growing and growing and growing all through the summer and now into the fall, where I used to think of the Times as the greatest. I think they're a very tepid, editorially in many, many ways. They lack the guts that I've seen in the Washington Post reportage, who I think are just showing them up left, right, and center. That's what I think. Might not be right, but that's what I think.
Well, and just from a consumer's point of view, I prefer the writing in the Washington Post. My eyes start glazing over when I pick up the New York.
Well, also if you look at the opinion page, the Times has some good people, but let's look at the women that they give a voice to. The women are Grace Collins and not Grace Collins. What is her name? Anyway, Collins and Maureen Dowd, and both of them have a style. Dowd more than the other, that is sort of mean girl snarky, right?
Very mean girl. Dowd is very mean
Dowd
girl.
is mean girl snark. If you look at who the Washington Post employs to write opinions that are female, they don't write like that. They've got some great women, and a lot of them Republican women. Like, I'm blanking on first name again, Rubin. And, I mean, their reporting and their opinions have been so well done and not snarky. Snark is easy. These are not times that require snark.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. She's always, she's supposed to apparently be funny, and this is nothing funny.
It's such an old trick. I can't stand her. Haven't for years and years and years and years and years.
Right.
And then
although today there was an opinion piece in the Washington Post by a woman in defense of Huckabee, which I just
ugh. Okay, so we haven't even, the horrors are so constant now that we have to just pause a moment. Did you actually...
Pocahontas?
Yes. Did you actually force yourself to live through that cringe-ifying?
It's like there's a voice in his head saying, "Oh God, don't say it, don't say it. I know you want to say it, don't say it." And then he just outslips Pocahontas. He sees an Indian and out a Native American, and out pops.
Now, and let's talk about the setting too, because here you had these 3 90-plus-year-old veterans, the code talkers. those who are left. And there you had somebody who apparently is the President of the United States, and he was there to honor them. He places them, if you look at the still photos, underneath the gaze of a president that attempted genocide against their peoples. They are standing. They were put in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson, who, as I'm sure we know, is the one that did, it was, I think, called the Indian Removal Act.
Right. Right.
And he sure as hell removed them. Men, women, and children forced on a march to the West, out of their homelands, out of everything they knew. The Trail of Tears, and so many died on the way.
Right. It's how the Oneida Indians end up in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Right. Now,
instead of New York, where they lived.
So I've got to tell you, just looking at the picture of these Native Americans standing with Donald Trump and his favorite president, the Indian killer, Andrew Jackson, it's enough to make me literally want to vomit. It is so disgusting. This would not happen in any White House other than his. Here, we've got, we've got for anyone who didn't hear the audio, what you won't see are the unsmiling faces of these heroic World War II veterans who don't laugh at what I guess is Trump's joke. Here it is.
Watch.
Have for the country. So that was the ultimate statement from General Kelly, the importance. And I just want to thank you because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you.
Oh, but you know what? I like you.
You know, I didn't hear that, so that's good. I couldn't hear it on my end. I hope it went out there.
Oh, yeah. I think it did. So you were here long before, although that kind of thing, that doesn't even register anymore amidst the horror and the danger. God. By the way, he's tweeting more than ever. There are people who actually count.
He must be anxious.
He must be very anxious. Listen to how it's just gone up and up and up. He sent 362 tweets in June, 424 in July, 485 in September, and in his November pace, he's likely heading to close to 800. One day recently, he did 51 tweets. In a day! This is the president?
Well, and he's squeezed in something like 86 golf games, too.
I know. I just... Roger writes, what a great email from your friend this morning. My wife and I were discussing your show from yesterday regarding some women needing to accept some responsibility in their victimization by putting themselves at risk by knowingly going to certain places. Your friend is absolutely right by saying now's not the time to talk about the victim's culpability. It takes the focus of the problem off the men who are the predators. Comparing it to police violence towards blacks is spot on, too. It loses the point of the concern. Men and police in both situations must be the focus of the conversation. They are not the victims. What a great argument, and it's something for people like me to keep in mind when talking to the knuckle draggers. Otherwise, we just give them an out in their closed minds. Lou writes, all I have to say about the New York Times, I have never forgotten. What? Oh, Judith Miller. Yes. Her subject line is Judith Miller. You remember Judith Miller? Judith Miller was their crack.
She's the one that lied.
She's the one that shilled for the Bush White House and putting on the front page of the New York Times the piece that then the Bush White House fed to her, and then they were able to hold up the New York Times and say, look, the liberal New York Times says he's got weapons of mass destruction and we got to go to war. That's right. The Times gets played over and over again. And you're right. We want to thank the New York Times and the Washington Post for that matter, and almost all mainstream media for getting us into the Iraq War. But the Times, I don't think they stand up to a lot of scrutiny these days. And there are people I know on Twitter that do a pretty damn good job of pointing out their bias. And the New York Times bias is not necessarily a liberal bias, I assure you. I don't care what their editorials are. Mark writes, how much longer? It's making me crazy. How much longer will those of us in the 5% be thrown in with the 95% who are the bad apples? It's just so unfair, Kimosabi. This is Mark in Columbus. I think you're just a little too sarcastic for the crowd. I don't think we were to take that. I think that was sarcastic. And Chuck, Susan mentioned that there are so many fronts to this war on America, which is so true. But we should have seen this coming. Democrats have been asleep at the wheel. Oh, God, is that true? Around the end of Clinton's term, Fox News was born and the propaganda began. And then gerrymandering took root, and the Republicans took over the state governments and the state judicial seats. And then during Obama's term, they win the House and the Senate, and now they have their puppet president in place. The Republicans realized long ago that slow and steady wins the race. It took 20 years for the Republicans it took more than 20. I've been watching it. It took more, 30, 40 years for the Republicans to pull this off. It will take at least that long to reverse what they've done, at least. And as I said, I don't know that Democrats are up to the task. It's like the Steeler Le'Veon Bell said the other day that the only team that can beat that can beat us is us. And I really think that that's the same of the Democrats. They are their own worst enemy. Okay. Mary wants to say something too. Honestly, all the flaming idiots sitting next to us in our society have the right to be flaming idiots. Trying to understand what happened to them to bring them to this hateful place in life, that the only conclusion I come to is there must be some flaw in their brains, a form of mental retardation. I don't think that's it, but I can't imagine living life in their shoes because they're so angry all the time, because they're so fearful. Again, I'm so grateful I'm a lover, because those haters, wow. I'm living a new chapter with the minority. Most likely never would have happened. I believe completely that the lovers and goodness will prevail. I don't know about that myself. I don't think there's something wrong with their brains per se. I think there's something wrong, and it could just be chemistry. It could be something they've got no control over themselves, that they are just perhaps more fearful, more prone to anger. I mean, I don't know, but fear and anger are what seem to motivate them. More so, I mean, studies have been done that show that that is true. And the Republicans have long used, they know it. They use fear and anger. That's their base. Their base has always been fearful. That's why they always have boogeymen, be it blacks or gays, so that these fearful people have somebody to, they need a boogeyman. Immigrants, doesn't matter. They always have to have one. And anger because they're constantly told that somebody else has something more. And that's why they hate minorities, too. They've been decided that somehow the minorities are getting what they're supposed to have. And let's be honest, there might be some truth to the fact that immigrants coming in willing to do hard labor for not very high wages, to say the least, are undercutting the maybe white working class workers. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that we should suggest that they don't have some real grievances. I don't know. I think I'm going to do a Keith Olbermann and just quit. We have a call.
We need you.
Oh, yeah, right. We have a caller. Hi.
Clarence from Canonsburg.
Yeah,
Proud
Clarence.
owner of a pair of notes.
What was that? I didn't even hear it.
The proud owner of a pair of nailed shoes. Yeah.
Good.
Got them for $4.57.
All right, stop. You really? You got a pair of nailed shoes for $4? What the hell?
It was one of those things, and I think it was because you mentioned them years ago, or who knows.
Yeah, I did.
I recognized the name.
I was selling them. Those are made in Israel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I went to a secondhand store, and
there they were,
brand new, brand spanking new. And I recognized the name, and I went, oh my goodness. Obviously, the people in the secondhand store had no idea what was sitting there.
No, they're beauts.
That's so often the case.
You know, when I was doing those ads for Littles, I used to, and they wanted me to push Naot at some point, and so I was pushing them, saying, after all, I said, stop and think about it. Think of the Middle East. Think of Israel. Think of all the pictures you've seen of Jesus and the apostles. What were they wearing? What were they wearing? They were wearing sandals. If anybody knows how to make a sandal by now, after millennia of making sandals, it's the Israelis, okay? And the guys at Little's told me that somebody came into the store and said...
And complained.
No. They came into the store and said, can I see the sandals that Jesus wore? So, there you have it.
That's hilarious.
It worked.
I haven't tried to walk on water with them yet, but we'll see.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about you were talking about the brain mindsets or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just had a discussion this morning that we all know that our, for lack of a better term, lizard brain is the one that controls fight or flight.
That's right, and that's where the fear is.
Yeah. And our prefrontal cortex is the one that controls reason and logic and emotion and all.
That's right.
Basically turns off our fight or flight response. And I think that those people are still, it's changed, the fear of change and newness and all that kind of good stuff. So their lizard brains are in control. I don't know what you do about it, but that's what's happening. It's that fear of the other, the fear of change, and it happened so quickly that they didn't have time to adapt. Like the woman brought up the Obama presidency. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that he was a black guy
in the White House,
right? In the White House, and you can see what they think of presidents.
Yeah.
They see presidents as not as an executive, but more of a king or a pope or a
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And so and that was the shocker. And then you get the LGBT rights coming in fast. You know what I mean? And of course, the lie that these people are coming in and taking your jobs, and anybody can tell you that it's more automation than it is people.
Right.
Because look, they're just these others are just as unemployed as you are. So
that's right. But I do think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have, our brains are made the same, but I do think clearly that, we're wired a little differently, and some people just by whatever, that fight and flight or fear and anger or reptilian brain, it tends to override that.
Jonathan Haidt wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Conservatives tend to want authoritarian.
They like authority, right?
They like authority, and liberals tend, and that's like you said. Democrats' biggest problem is themselves. They like to sit there and argue and analyze and
right.
and all this kind of good stuff, and tend not to like authority, authority figures and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, it's a huge problem, and I think it's a pendulum swing. We're way over to the right now. And it's going to take none of us going to be here when it goes back to the left. But we have to, we still have to push it towards that way.
Yeah. I hear you. No, and I don't think we will be here because it is we're talking 30, 40 years. But of course, in that time, the global kind of dysfunctionality might kick in. And we don't have a clue what's coming down the pike. But I don't think it's good. That's my guess.
Well, we can't react in fear. We have to keep up the good fight.
Yes.
That's
right.
That's exactly it.
That's exactly it. Susan, thank you. Clarence, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought who said, wait, Clarence.
We're all depressed.
We are?
Huh?
Well, how do you not, Clarence? That horrible,
I'm never depressed.
That horrible picture of your head on a turkey.
You know what that...
By
the way, I was absolutely offended by your comment, your sister. But
and I forgot my comment was what? I like the dark meat.
I warned her that was offensive.
It really wasn't offensive, but I thought saying it was offensive would be funny. But you know where that's from?
No.
There was an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer's head was on, I think, on a turkey. And it was through the eyes of Newman, because Kramer was taking a shower in vegetables, and then he got under a suntan lamp. It was smelling tasty, and Newman looked at him and saw him as a
turkey,
as
gotcha.
a baked turkey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Kind of stuff in it. But I thought it was a good little Thanksgiving thing. But you have to know Seinfeld to get the whole funniness of it.
Okay. So we didn't.
Right.
But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All
okay.
right. Bye. Yeah, Susan, so we're all dependent. But we'll let Brooke get the last word in here. She writes, wouldn't we all like to follow Keith Olbermann and retire from this? These past 12 months have been time-consuming, and I'm weary. We all deserve to retire one day, but that doesn't mean you stop living and fighting the good fight. If I had his megaphone and his audience, I would put it to good use, especially now. So, yeah, I agree. Now's not the time to leave the arena. But, man, it's tough. It's just tough.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys.
But if it makes you feel any better, Lynn, those of us that don't have a platform such as yours are talking about it anyway. Not doing it publicly doesn't let you escape, so you might as well do some good with this misery.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement.
That's why I think Oberman will be back. There's no escaping.
He won't be able to shut up. It's odd.
No.
He made clear this is not because I've been fired. This is not any scandal. No one's going to get me on, this. And he prefaced it by saying, I just... But I understand totally. I feel beaten up. I really do. And I'm sure we all do. Okie doke. Susan, thank you so much. It was so wonderful being in Chicago at your beautiful home with your crazy animals.
Well, it was nice having you.
Yeah. All righty. Thanks a million.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And you guys, thank you very much. And I swear to God, if there's a way to get happy and funny, I'm grabbing it. I mean, I am looking as we're all being swept down this raging river of horror. I keep looking for something to grab onto that'll give us some respite. And you know what? I haven't found anything recently. But I'm still trying. Just trying to keep my head above water, like the rest of you. God bless you. Good luck. And hang in there.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.